Centuries before the Christian era, there existed sacred texts that the Jewish people held in the highest regard. Yet, when the Bible was meticulously compiled, some of these powerful writings mysteriously vanished from inclusion. But what if fragments of these forgotten scriptures have now resurfaced, carrying with them unsettling revelations that could shake the very foundation of faith? Hidden within the long-lost pages of the Book of Ezra lies a message so terrifying, it was intentionally left out. What could be so shocking that it was banned from the Bible? Stay with us as we unveil the Book of Ezra's forbidden truths the world wasn't meant to know. The ancient Book of Ezra, revered as the 15th jewel in the sacred Old Testament, holds a pivotal role in the Hebrew Bible. This Bible is delicately organized into 3 distinct sections: the Law, Prophets, and Writings. These aren't just historical terms, but categories that carry deep spiritual weight. The Law, often seen as the foundation, comprises the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Following this is the section of the Prophets, an intense 8-book collection divided into former and latter prophets, capturing God's messages to humanity. Finally, we arrive at the Writings, a fascinating mix of religious poetry, wisdom literature, and history, including the Psalms, Proverbs, Job, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Chronicles. But where does Ezra fit into this grand narrative? Originally, Ezra and Nehemiah were bound together as one volume, both books mysteriously known as Ezra. This singular text remained intact for centuries, until figures like Origen and Jerome, in the 3rd to 4th century AD, separated them. It wasn't until the 15th century that these books formally appeared as 2 distinct volumes in the Hebrew Bible. The true authorship of Ezra and Nehemiah remains veiled in the mists of time. According to tradition, it is believed that Ezra, the skilled scribe, not only wrote the book that bears his name, but also authored 1 and 2 Chronicles. Why? His administrative duties were said to be less demanding than those of Nehemiah, allowing him time to compose these writings. Intriguing details, such as extensive lists, fervent prayers, and official documents within the texts, suggest first-hand knowledge, further supporting the belief that Ezra himself penned these books. Together, Ezra and Nehemiah form a historical tapestry, documenting the miraculous recovery of the Jews following their Babylonian exile in 538 BC. Their tale recounts how the Jews rebuilt their temple by 515 BC, and later, the walls of Jerusalem in 445 BC. These works do more than just record events. They stand as eternal reminders of God's divine intervention during the Jews' arduous journey to restore their homeland, reminding them that, despite their sins, God's unwavering presence remained. The Book of Ezra spans 2 critical time periods: the initial return to Jerusalem and the reconstruction of the temple between 539 and 516 BC, followed by Ezra and Nehemiah's ministries from 458 to 430 BC. Over 120 years of suffering, hope, and divine promises take center stage, portraying the Jews' painful journey from exile to redemption. Judah's exile at the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, the promised 70-year return, and glimpses of a divine plan unfold like a cosmic drama, one where God's prophecy predicted a liberating end to captivity. Before Ezra's arrival, the Babylonian exile seemed deceptively stable. Figures like Daniel and his companions, blending into Babylonian rule, hinted at the complexity of Jewish integration. But God's revelation would disrupt that tranquility. The reign of Cyrus and his royal decree to rebuild the temple marked the beginning of a new chapter. However, not all Jews accepted this divine invitation. Many who had built successful lives in Babylon rejected the perilous journey back to a barren Jerusalem. Against this tumultuous backdrop, the Book of Ezra details both spiritual and physical struggles. We witness cycles of return, resistance, and triumph, echoed by the challenges faced during temple construction in Ezra 1-6. Political opposition, manipulative neighbors, and bureaucratic delays tried to halt the sacred mission. But divine plans foretold by prophets Haggai and Zechariah reignited hope, ultimately leading to the completion of the temple, a victory orchestrated by God Himself. Ezra's heart-wrenching prayers, communal fasting, and collective repentance breathed life into a broken nation, calling for a purified, restored Jerusalem. But this is just the beginning. Ezra's narrative seamlessly blends into Nehemiah's chronicles, painting a larger picture of a nation's spiritual and physical restoration, one that continues to evolve even today. In today's English Bible, Protestant Bible, and the Hebrew Old Testament, 4 books are connected to Ezra. Their content intertwines, sparking intense debates among scholars. The question remains, why were certain sections left out of the Bible we know today? What terrifying secrets were hidden within these texts? As scholars continue to unearth and examine ancient manuscripts, one thing is clear: there is much more to the story of Ezra than meets the eye. In the English-speaking world, particularly following the Anglican numbering system, we have Ezra and Nehemiah as we know them, followed by 1st and 2nd Esdras. These latter two are simply the Latin versions of the name Ezra. Anglican tradition stands out among Protestant practices due to its inclusion of such books absent from the standard Protestant Bible. These books, sourced from the Greek Old Testament known as the Septuagint or LXX, go by various names, with 2 primary titles being Deuterocanon and Apocrypha. Deuterocanon, when translated, means second canon or secondary canon, emphasizing the continuity from the Hebrew scriptures to these additional books in the Greek Old Testament. This term bridges the gap from Malachi, the last prophet, to the era of John the Baptist and Jesus in the New Testament, leading into the Gospels. Deuterocanon also highlights the canonicity, arguing that these books rightfully belong in the Bible. It's more about chronology than establishing a status of rank. On the other hand, we encounter the term Apocrypha, meaning hidden, uncertain, or false. Originally, this term addressed the uncertainty surrounding the origin of these books rather than their contents. Early church discussions debated whether these books should be treated like the rest of the Old Testament or kept separate. While the majority of church fathers favored their inclusion, St. Jerome was less enthusiastic, encouraging strict compliance with the Hebrew canon. St. Jerome, born between 347 and 420, hailed from a wealthy pagan family in Dalmatia. Originally sent to Rome for education, he experienced a sincere conversion to Christianity, marked by baptism under Pope Liberius. His journey into theology led him to travel to key intellectual and theological centers in the newly formed Christian empire. Ordained a priest in Antioch, he later embraced a solitary life in a nearby desert, evolving into an exceptional scholar and regarded as the most educated among the Latin Church Fathers. St. Jerome's lasting legacy lies in his extensive theological works, notably dedicating 30 years to creating the Latin translation of the Bible, known as the Latin Vulgate. This huge effort solidified his position as a deeply influential and orthodox theologian during the early church era. In his later years, he established a religious community near Bethlehem in the Holy Land, where he delved into writing histories and biographies and deepened his commitment to prayer and self-denial. Acknowledging his vital contributions to scholarship, St. Jerome received the honored title of Doctor of the Church. Renowned as the patron saint of libraries, archaeologists, students, and translators, his feast day is celebrated on September 30th. St. Jerome's rich and diverse life journey reflects a profound dedication to intellectual pursuits, spiritual meditation, and the enduring impact he made on Christian theology and learning. Over time, especially after the Reformation, the term Apocrypha has taken on a highly negative connotation. It evolved into an accusation suggesting that the contents of these books are hidden, uncertain, and false, discouraging people from reading them due to perceived danger and deceit. This prevailing mistrust among most Protestants today is quite different from how the early church regarded these books. Thus, we find ourselves between two extremes: Deuterocanon, leaning towards optimism, and Apocrypha, tilting towards suspicion. Striking a balance between these perspectives offers a renewed understanding of the place and significance of these books in the Anglican tradition. The Catholic Church and the Apocrypha. The Catholic Church acknowledges 7 apocryphal books, meaning their Old Testament comprised 46 books, unlike the 39 in standard versions. These books were officially recognized as canonical during the Council of Trent, where the Church declared, "These books belong in our Bible." Since then, Catholic Bible translations like the Jerusalem Bible and the New American Bible have consistently included the Apocrypha, while some translations, such as the Revised Standard Version, offered editions both with and without the Apocrypha. Interestingly, the King James Version initially included the Apocrypha but later excluded it. Various translation committees, including those responsible for the American Standard, New American Standard, and New King James versions, chose not to include the Apocrypha at all. First and Second Esdras, although part of the Apocrypha, are not accepted by either Catholics or Protestants. Other books in this collection are Tobit, Judith, the remaining portion of Esther, the Wisdom of Solomon, Ecclesiasticus, Baruch, attached with the Epistle of Jeremiah, the Song of the Three Children, the History of Susanna, added to Daniel, Bel and the Dragon, also added to Daniel, and the Prayer of Manasses. Speaking of the Prayer of Manasses, this book addresses a significant historical figure. Manasseh, one of the most wicked kings of Judah. While the book of 2 Kings omits a crucial detail, 2 Chronicles chapter 33 reveals that at the end of his life, Manasseh repented and prayed to God. The prayer of Manasseh attempts to capture that prayer, providing insights and bridging gaps in our historical understanding. It's worth noting that this particular book is not accepted by either Catholics or Protestants. Also, the Apocrypha contains the books of 1 and 2 Maccabees, adding depth to historical and religious narratives. Why does the Catholic Church strongly defend the Apocrypha while not recognizing the 1st and 2nd Esdras? The primary reason lies not in evidence validating its authenticity, but rather in its harmony with some of their doctrines. Take, for example, the Catholic teaching of praying for the dead and the belief that sacrifices can influence the fate of the deceased. According to this doctrine, once a person passes away and enters a state of torment or suffering, prayers and monetary offerings can change their eternal destination, shifting them from suffering to a place of reward. However, this perspective is not in harmony with the teachings of inspired scriptures. The Bible consistently asserts that a person's eternal destiny is sealed upon death. In Luke 16, there's an account involving a rich man and Lazarus, a poor but righteous individual. The rich man faces torment after death, while Lazarus finds comfort with Abraham in paradise. This scenario emphasizes a significant separation, as described in Luke 16, with a great fixed gulf between those in torment and those in comfort, making any transition impossible. Hebrews 9, verse 27, further strengthens the biblical view that individuals face judgment after a single death, and their destiny is unchangeable. Contrasting this biblical perspective, the Apocrypha, specifically in 2 Maccabees 12, attempts to justify the Catholic doctrine by suggesting a form of compensation for the deceased, aiming to release them from their sins. Bertrand Conway, seeking to defend the Catholic practice of praying for the dead, referred to this passage, asserting that Protestants consider the Book of Maccabees apocryphal, but insisting it holds the same authority as Isaiah or St. John, relying on the divine, perfect witness of the Catholic Church. However, it's important to note the disagreement with this claim. Protestants do not attribute the inspiration of John and Isaiah to the authority of the Catholic Church. Additionally, the Apocrypha introduces the idea that a person can pay for sins through almsgiving, equating monetary offerings to forgiveness. This concept is covered in Tobit's statement, "It is better to give alms than to lay up gold," asserting that almsgiving can deliver from death and cleanse away all sin, essentially representing the Roman Catholic doctrine of so much pray for so much pay. Unveiling 1 and 2 Esdras. While the Catholic Church doesn't officially recognize 1 and 2 Esdras as sacred texts, these writings add a fascinating layer to the Old Testament narrative. Think of 1 Esdras as a backstory to Ezra and 2 Esdras as a sort of follow-up. Despite being attributed to Ezra, there's a likelihood that he wasn't the actual author, adding a mysterious touch. 1 Esdras holds a particular fascination. Although it might appear somewhat repetitive initially, a significant portion of it, both at the beginning and the end, repeats almost word for word the conclusion of 2 Chronicles and parts of the regular Book of Ezra. While there are minor differences in numbers and certain details, it essentially echoes familiar material. Similar to how 1 and 2 Chronicles retell events from 1 and 2 Kings, 1 Esdras offers a slightly changed perspective, creating a historical continuity that links the end of 2 Chronicles to the beginning of Ezra. It's like a thread connecting the fall and rise of Jerusalem, adding a positive and hopeful tone to the narrative. Yet what sets 1 Esdras apart is a unique section featuring the Rubel and 3 young guards. This particular story adds a distinctive flavor to the overall narrative, breaking away from repetition and introducing a fresh and engaging element to the text. Chapters 3 and 4 of 1 and 2 Esdras, especially during the rule of the Persian king Darius, unfold a captivating tale. In this narrative, 3 bodyguards engage in a competition to impress the king by determining what they believe is the strongest. The victor, with the wisest statement, stands to receive rich gifts and great honors, adding an interesting dimension to the storyline. In this captivating tale, the first guard presents a strong argument, proclaiming that wine stands as the mightiest force. He cleverly argues its ability to influence the minds of all, leveling the playing field for kings, orphans, and slaves alike. Taking a distinct path, the second guard argues that supreme strength lies in men governing land and sea. He logically emphasizes the king's supremacy as lord and master, aligning his response with political power to gain favor with the king. Yet the tale takes an unexpected turn with the third guard, Zerubbabel, who delivers an extensive and surprising response. He praises the greatness of women, attributing their significance to giving birth to kings and rulers. This acknowledgement of the dignity and power of women proves to be remarkably unexpected in the historical context, shedding a positive light on the female sex. Zerubbabel doesn't stop there. He continues to highlight the wideness of the earth, the height of heaven, and the swift motion of the sun, crediting greatness to these natural elements. However, he concludes that truth surpasses all, emerging victorious in the contest. This subtle shift in the narrative seamlessly shifts to pointing to the Creator and God Himself, emphasizing the significance of truth and wisdom. While acknowledging possible historical inaccuracies, 1st Esdras becomes a source of study, offering a deep object lesson. It discusses the significance of Lady Wisdom and emphasizes the crucial role of truth in God's religion. Zerubbabel's discourse on truth emerges as a strong lesson for apologetics and evangelism, rendering this book a valuable and enriching read. Often overshadowed, it contains a distinctive narrative that unfolds insights into Christian living and instruction. For a gripping and meaningful exploration, consider immersing yourself in the discourse of Zerubbabel found in chapters 3 and 4 of 1st Esdras. It might just unveil invaluable lessons for your spiritual journey. Jesus' references and prophetic insights, while the 2nd Esdras might be considered a non-canonical book, similar to the Book of Enoch, it holds a unique significance. Surprisingly, Jesus referred to or quoted from this book around 24 times in the Gospels. Even in the Book of Revelation, the angel referred to 2nd Esdras more frequently than Enoch. Despite its brief 16 chapters, this book provides profound insights. Among the noteworthy quotes, 2nd Esdras explains the concept of the narrow way, shedding light on why Jesus described it as such and the significance of finding it. Many Christians might not realize that this seemingly random idea connects to the end times. As explained in 2nd Esdras, 2nd Esdras also clearly mentions Daniel's 4th beast, revealing its identity and transformation from the 1st century to the Antichrist kingdom. Despite the uncertainties about its authorship, the importance of the 2nd Esdras is highlighted by Jesus himself, who referred to it on numerous occasions. If not directly authored by Ezra, it suggests inspiration from someone divinely inspired. Ezra's historical significance is undeniable, leading Israelites back to their homeland from Babylon in 457 BC under the reign of Artaxerxes. This event likely marked the beginning of the 70 weeks of Daniel. Every non-canonical book must be evaluated based on its agreement with the 66 books of the Bible. As we delve into the 2nd Esdras, you'll witness its remarkable alignment with many canonical sections. The age of 2nd Esdras is proof of its value, with a history spanning 2,500 years. Although the original Hebrew text no longer exists, Aramaic versions from 200 AD have survived. Surprisingly, the 2nd Esdras is present in the 1611 King James Bible, showcasing its historical and literary significance. It also finds a place in various translations, such as the Ethiopian, Syriac, Coptic, Armenian, and Georgian versions. When Jesus quotes from books like Isaiah or Deuteronomy, he often prefaces it with "it is written interestingly." This norm is absent when he refers to 2nd Esdras. This subtle distinction implies that 2nd Esdras might be a different genre of literature than Scripture. While it contains inspired ideas, not every word may be considered inspired. This once again places 2nd Esdras in the same category as Enoch, requiring discernment to distinguish between inspired and non-inspired content. When Jesus quotes from 2nd Esdras, he assumes that his audience is familiar with the book, referencing it in passing without providing all the details. This approach encourages the listeners to recall Esdras' teachings and connect them with Jesus' words, creating a gripping interplay between the two. Let us illustrate this with an example. When Jesus made a triumphant entry into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday, riding a donkey, his followers hailed him, laying palm branches and their coats on the ground as a first-century version of a red carpet. The crowd recognized Jesus with a messianic phrase saying, "Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord," essentially declaring him the Messiah. The Pharisees, wanting to deny Jesus' messiahship, asked him to rebuke his disciples. But instead, Jesus responded, "I tell you, if these were silent, the very stones would cry out." Luke 19, verse 40. This seemingly strange phrase has puzzled scholars who suggest that it implies all of creation speaking to what is true, whether acknowledged by humans or not. However, what many don't know is that the notion of stones crying out is a quote from the Book of Esdras. In this book, an angel gives Ezra 15 end time signs, with the sixth sign being that the stones will cry out. Jesus expected the Pharisees to recognize this quote, essentially saying that if humans failed to acknowledge him, the end times would commence, marked by the stones crying out. Interestingly, Jesus made this statement as he approached Jerusalem, near the temple. This prompts the question, which stones was Jesus referring to? It appears he meant the buildings of Jerusalem, stressing the idea that 2nd Esdras was correct about the signs of stones crying out. Now, let's explore another famous phrase of Jesus about the narrow way. During the Sermon on the Mount, he said, "Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy, that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow, and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few." Matthew 7:13-14. This statement in itself makes sense and aligns with the concept of the narrow and wide gates. Yet, what escapes the notice of many scholars is that this phrase refers to a more extensive passage in the 2nd Esdras. Jesus presumed that his audience was familiar with 2nd Esdras, so he didn't delve into all the additional details by uttering those words. He prompted his listeners to recall the extra details from Esdras, which unsurprisingly hold end-time significance. Here's what 2nd Esdras elaborates on. Imagine a vast city situated in a large valley, but the sole entrance is a narrow passage through the mountains. This passage is dangerous, with fire on one side and a sharp cliff over deep waters on the other. The path is so narrow that only one person can enter at a time. If someone is given this city as an inheritance, the only way to possess it is by navigating through this dangerous passage. 2 Esdras 7:6-9. Continuing the comparison, 2nd Esdras emphasizes that the entrance to this future age is narrow, filled with sorrow, trials, pain, and dangers. Only a few will pass through these tribulations and evils to receive the abundant and sure blessings of the future world. The angel, speaking to Ezra in 2nd Esdras, questions why people focus on the present instead of the future. The passage reads, "Then were the entrances of this world made narrow, full of sorrow and trials. They are but few and evil, full of danger and very painful. For the entrances of the elder world were wide and sure, and brought immortal fruit. If then they that live labor not to enter these straight and vain things, they can never receive those that are laid up for them. Why are you stressing when you're just a regular person who can be affected by imperfections? Why let it bother you when you're only human?" It becomes evident that this is the same comparison as the one in Matthew 7 that Jesus provided. However, 2nd Esdras adds a wealth of extra detail to enrich the understanding. The crucial question arises, what does this city of our inheritance represent? Certainly, the New Jerusalem described in Revelation 21-22 serves as the ultimate inheritance, awaiting us after Jesus' return. The narrow way, as emphasized by Jesus in Matthew chapter 7, is not only exclusive but also challenging, filled with tribulations. It's a path that demands endurance and commitment. In essence, Jesus urges us not to be focused solely on our present lives, but to keep our gaze fixed on the future inheritance awaiting us. Focusing on this future reality makes the challenges of the present more bearable. Those unwilling to walk the narrow way miss the opportunity to enter the glorious city, the New Jerusalem. 2nd Esdras, however, doesn't conclude in the narrow way. It delves deeper, offering detailed insights into the end times and the Messianic kingdom. All of this is complexly connected to the narrow way that paves the journey leading to the kingdom. Consider this excerpt: "Behold, the days to come, when the signs I have foretold come to pass, and the bride is revealed. What has been withdrawn from the earth will be brought back. Whoever is delivered from these predicted evils will witness wonders. The Messiah, my son, will be revealed alongside those who remain, rejoicing for 1,000 years." 2nd Ezra chapter 7, verses 26 to 28. Jesus' audience during the Sermon on the Mount, familiar with 2nd Esdras, would naturally connect these words to the narrow way. When Jesus spoke of the narrow way, they likely associated it with the withdrawal and return of the bride, symbolizing a period of separation and subsequent rejoicing. This reunion with the Messiah and the 1,000-year rejoicing align with the Messianic kingdom, revealing that the narrow way indeed carries deep end-time implications. Insights often overlooked by modern scholars unfamiliar with 2nd Esdras. The harmonious echo, 2nd Esdras and Revelation. Following the vivid portrayal of the 1,000-year Messianic kingdom, 2nd Esdras proceeds to describe the Great White Throne's judgment, a scene strikingly similar to Revelation's depiction. It echoes the idea that the earth will give up those resting within it, dust yielding its silent dwellers, and secret chambers delivering the souls entrusted to them. 2nd Ezra chapter 7, verse 32. In Revelation, a parallel imagery emerges, stating, "And the sea gave up the dead who were in it, and death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them." Revelation chapter 20, verse 13. The similarity between the two accounts is clear. Continuing, 2nd Esdras unfolds a vision where the Most High takes his place on the judgment seat, indicating the passing away of misery and long suffering. A powerful message declares that on the day of judgment, the familiar celestial bodies, sun, moon, and stars will exist no more. 2nd Ezra chapter 7, verse 33. This aligns with Revelation's depiction, which states, "Then I saw a great white throne, and him who was seated on it, and from his presence earth and sky fled away." Revelation chapter 20, verse 11. The parallels emphasize the striking harmony in the descriptions. Drawing from Matthew chapter 24, verse 22, where Jesus emphasizes the necessity of shortening those days for humanity's survival, 2nd Esdras echoes a similar idea. Urging prayer for the cutting short of those challenging times, it reflects the harmony of Jesus' words with the insights found in 2nd Esdras. Chapter 2, verse 13 reads, "Go, and ye shall receive. Pray for few days unto you, that they may be shortened. The kingdom is already prepared for you." Watch in Matthew chapter 8, verses 11 to 12. Jesus speaks of the millennial kingdom. 2nd Esdras chapter 1, verse 38 also mirrors the idea of people coming from the east and being led by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. A pattern of shared concepts arises. Both texts convey a common narrative, strengthening their connection. Furthermore, 2nd Esdras foretells the signs appearing before the visit of the Most High upon the world. It expects earthquakes, global unrest, and disorder among nations, in agreement with the signs Jesus spoke of in Matthew. Emphasizing the repetitive nature of beginnings and ends, 2nd Esdras assures salvation for those who believe and act faithfully, allowing them to navigate the impending perils and witness divine salvation. 2nd Esdras, chapter 9, verses 1 to 8. Examining the parallels, it's interesting how closely 2nd Esdras aligns with Luke's Olivet Discourse. Luke chapter 21, verses 9 to 11, 25 to 26. Luke's account warns against fear amid wars and riots, emphasizing that these events are unavoidable but don't signify the immediate end. Nations rising against nations, celestial signs, and earthly distress are foretold, with a call to remain watchful, praying for escape from coming trials. Similarly, 2nd Esdras inserts a unique refinement. The return of Jesus occurs amid these signs, neither at the outset nor the conclusion. This distinctive placement aligns with a pre-wrath rapture perspective, providing an alternative interpretation of the sequence of events, looking deeper into biblical insights. 2nd Esdras offers an exciting perspective on Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel 2, specifically the image in the stone cut without human hands. Daniel records the stone striking the image's feet, breaking them, and eventually becoming a great mountain that fills the entire earth. Daniel chapter 2, verses 34 to 35. 2nd Esdras sheds light on this symbol, explaining that after the preceding signs come to pass, the Son of God will be revealed. This revelation involves a gathering of countless people engaged in battle against each other, symbolizing conflict. However, when they hear the Son's voice, they stop their dispute. The Son, identified as Jesus, stands on Mount Zion, which is not already present but is in the process of coming. The mountain signifies the New Jerusalem, prepared in heaven and coming down as a bride. According to 2nd Esdras, the New Jerusalem is the heavenly Mount Zion, unveiled as it descends, a captivating perspective on the celestial city's role in the narrative. What are your thoughts concerning the 1st and 2nd Esdras? Let us know your opinion in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate your time and hope you found this video both enlightening and thought-provoking. If you enjoyed the content, please don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more in-depth explorations just like this. Your feedback is incredibly valuable to us, so feel free to leave a comment below and let us know your thoughts, questions, or any insights you'd like to share.